What up, guys? This is the Kingsman Report. It's the news everyone ignores. My name is Ryan, and tonight I'm going to talk about all types of stuff. Tensions rising in Syria, Turkey, some of the aftermath that has happened, some of the discoveries I guess they made in the Hong Kong riots, drones. I have tech news. I have some changes that may be coming along in the Trump administration. All types of stuff. I also have a live call-in number if you guys want to call in. The number scrolling across the bottom of the screen there, and there's also a live chat. If you guys want to send me any articles, it's kingsmanreport2019@gmail.com, and you can send me articles there, and you can talk about those articles live if you decide to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and get situated here, and then I'll be right back. Alright, what's up, guys? As you can see on your screen, some people that view this, I don't really get into politics a whole lot, but I do like Craig Gowdy. I don't know, I've liked Craig Gowdy for a long time, and if Giuliani is ousted by what's going on with his whole investigation that he's open into Burisma and Biden, Biden's son Hunter, then it looks like Gowdy could possibly be up for the position. So, like I said, I have all types of just different articles I'm going to read tonight on various topics. If you guys want to call in, you can call in live 1408-638-0968 and enter the meeting ID 534-233-4758. And you could talk about any of these articles. And as always, I post all of the links in the description below, and you can go back and read these for yourself. The people on D Live that subscribe to the channel, I appreciate it. And to the people who have subscribed so far on YouTube, I appreciate it as well. I'm just starting this out, so we're gonna go ahead and get into some of these articles I have. You can also view this on my personal page on Periscope. You can view it on D Live and Twitch, YouTube, all streaming simultaneously. So, article says, Giuliani out soon as Trump's lawyer, Gowdy rises. I'm telling you guys this, you're gonna keep, wait, if this is true, this guy is a pit bull. I respect this guy. This speculation mushroomed as White House, at the White House on Thursday afternoon that Rudy Giuliani would soon be out as President Donald Trump's personal attorney. Following reports, he pursued more than $200,000 in business from the Ukraine government while searching for embarrassing information about the president's political opponents. It says, should Giuliani leave the Trump legal team, several sources told Newsmax he was likely to be replaced by former Representative Trey Gowdy, Republican of South Carolina, and someone President Trump's wanted for wanted very much to hire in October until discovering Gowdy would have to wait until January to become his lawyer because of federal lobbying rules. Because in response to a question from Newsmax on October the 10th about Trey Gowdy becoming his chief attorney, Trump replied before boarding the Marine One helicopter, the former congressman has, quote, a problem he can't start for another couple of months because of lobbying rules and regulations. He offered no details, however, and simply told us, you'll have to ask about that. Says several observers of the Trump's legal operation conclude Gowdy was, quote, out of the picture as far as being the president's top legal advisor. Now speculation about him is back. Newsmax tried to reach to Gowdy at his South Carolina law office, but he did not return our calls at the press time. If that is true, that dude is hardcore. This I think is awesome because this shows that regardless of your your religious belief, we're human beings, and I props to this woman who did this. I think this is awesome. It's like I tell everybody, all this religion, all this racial divide, this class, all this is part of a bigger picture of the divide and conquer scenario they're trying to push on all of us and to keep us fighting amongst ourselves. And this is a really awesome story. I really liked this one when I found it. It says a Muslim woman went viral for confronting anti-Semitism on the London Underground. Her actions hold a lesson for us all. I need to put a space there. It says a video of a hijab-wearing Muslim woman confronting an anti-Semite on a London Underground train last week has been shared widely online, both here and in the UK and beyond. The viral clip has prompted many of us to question our assumptions about how members of Muslim and Jewish communities interact, especially as political tribalism and divisions become more entrenched on both sides of the Atlantic. As the abuser in the anti-Semitic incident aggressively read anti-Jewish passages from the Bible to two young Orthodox Jewish boys who were traveling with their father. He accused them of, quote, starting the slave trade and belonging to, quote, the synagogue of Satan. He only stopped when he was confronted by a fellow passenger, Ozma Shuwick. Sorry if I mispronounced the name. Says, although it has become more common in recent years, anti-Semitism is always shocking, particularly when the victims include, as in this case, young children who were subjected to that, or to what bystanders described as, quote, 15 to 20 minute rant, a small part of which went viral on social media. I think it's awesome that she stood up and she actually said something about this. It just goes to show you some people look beyond all that stuff. They respect what you practice. I practice what I practice, and I keep what I keep. And Shabbat Shalom to those who are keeping the Sabbath. But I don't, try to beat anybody with my faith. I keep my faith. I make it self-applicable to myself, and I hope for a change in myself that, the world around me will see that change and conform from witnessing my actions rather than preaching a message. So I give, big props to this woman. I think this is an awesome story. I just think it goes to show you, don't judge a book by its cover. And for the jerk off doing that, those were children, Those are children. Younger generation is having to deal with a lot more chaotic incidences happening in this world right now. All the quick change and everything. They don't need to be subjected to your ideology or your perspective or point of view on certain things, especially when it comes to that. But that's my opinion. This article says Hong Kong cops find nearly 4,000 petrol bombs on besieged university campus. It says the last of the pro-democracy protesters who occupied Polytechnic University, or PU, are gone. They left behind a lot of weapons. It says Hong Kong police declared their 12-day siege of university campus on Friday after a sweep of the site revealed that pro-democracy protesters inside had stockpiled nearly 4,000 petrol bombs and more than 1,300 other explosive items. They were also armed with bow and arrows, if you guys haven't been paying attention to what's going on over there. It says Polytechnic University, known as PolyU, became the scene of the most intense standoff of Hong Kong's nearly 6-month protest movement when police blockaded the campus earlier this month, trapping inside more than 1,000 protesters who had occupied the complex. As violent clashes broke out between protesters who were armed with Molotov cocktails, catapults, and bow and arrows, and riot police who fired rubber bullets, tear gas, and water cannons. Scores of protesters fearing maximum sentences of 10 years for rioting managed to escape the campus by crawling through underground tunnels or climbing from overpasses onto waiting motorbikes. More than 800 gave themselves up to police and were arrested as they tried to flee. It says about 100 police officers finally entered the campus on Thursday with the intention of collecting evidence and seizing weapons and dangerous items, after university staff reported they had found no signs of protesters still on the grounds. Police said Friday they had seized 3,989 petrol bombs, 1,339 other explosive items, 601 bottles of corrosive liquids, and 573 weapons, including a dozen bows, 200 arrows, and an air rifle. Declaring the operation over, Assistant Commissioner of Police Chow Yat-ming said police would continue their investigation into what took place at the university, where university staff estimate it could take up to 6 months to repair the damage caused during the operation. If you guys haven't seen those pictures, they roasted that place to the ground. I mean, they tore it up pretty bad. It says the force is happy to see that the process has been conducted. My nephew. Get back to that. It says the force is happy to see that the process has been conducted peacefully, and I want to reiterate that we have always followed two main principles, quote, peace resolution and flexibility, said Chow. Police have zero tolerance for violence or law breaking, and we will continue to investigate this case. The clashes at PolyU marked a dark chapter in the pro-democracy movement, resulting in the arrest of hundreds of protesters. But activists have since been buoyed by positive developments in their struggle. On Wednesday, U.S. President Donald Trump signed 2 new laws supporting the protest movement, prompting a, quote, Thanksgiving rally in the heart of the city Thursday night. That news came just days after pro-democracy candidates won a landslide victory over their pro-Beijing rivals in local elections last Sunday, taking control of 17 out of the 18 districts. Hopefully they'll get some resolve over there and what's going on. I think it's crazy that people in this country, it doesn't seem like we're as passionate about. It seems like we just freely hand over our freedoms and our liberties, and these people are like fighting and protesting to get those things back, and we're just like, here, have them. Patriot Act. Oh, well, yes, sign that, and then you can spy on all my stuff. Oh, they're looking at my text. I don't do anything wrong. It's just the idea that why would they even want to look at your stuff, but that's just me. So some people may argue and say that they don't think that a recession's coming. Some people, follow what's going on in finances, and some people think that there could possibly be a recession. And a lot of articles just kind of, I talked about it, and some other guys have talked about it, about the secret repo rates, the banks bailing each other out to kind of balance it out. And I've talked about it. I don't see it coming probably within the next 4 years. I don't really see anything like this happening. but it is a possibility. I think if the current president is reelected, that the other group, the powers that be, the people behind the curtains, the ones pulling the strings, are going to throw everything that they can at the economy, the president, his supporters. I think it's just going to be all out chaotic because, obviously they don't want him there. But this article says everything you need to know about the next recession. It says, don't ask when the next recession will come. Trust me, nobody knows. I can tell you that the consensus among those who don't actually know is at some point in 2020, probably in time to liven up the presidential election. Democrats' efforts to fight past recessions have been hampered by bipartisan concerns about increasing the federal budget deficit. President Donald Trump has helped to explode that tradition, thanks to his huge deficit-busting tax cut focused on the rich and his recent promises of a second tax cut. When the next recession arrives, Democrats will have plenty of room to argue that the government should increase spending to juice the economy. So, what's a recession anyways? It says, let's back up. First of all, what's a recession? The classic definition is 2 consecutive quarters of declining gross domestic product, or GDP, which is the measure of the total value of all goods and services the economy produces. Changes in GDP do not exactly coincide with the changes in unemployment rates. Unemployment is what's called, quote, a lagging indicator, which means it typically begins to rise at some point after GDP has started falling and a recession has commenced. It says there are entire populations that, going by economic measures typical of a recession, are always in, quote, recession. It says unemployment levels considered to hair on fire disaster on a national scale are normal in minority communities and among unmarried women. In the most recent employment situation release from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, national unemployment was at a low 3.6%. Among African Americans, it was 5.4%. That gap is accepted as normal. In the same vein, among families with 2 married parents in 2018, at least 74.7% had at least one parent who was employed. Among families maintained by women, that seems without a spouse, only 62.9% had an employed parent. The customary considerations around recession and unemployment are profoundly racist and sexist. The households that are financially underwater even before they had bad times are disappropriately made up of people of color and headed by women. There are different kinds of poverty. One kind is temporary, the other is more permanent and harder to escape. The sort of poverty in which many find themselves year after year or generation after generation. And the number of people temporarily in poverty is greater than the number usually in poverty. That means the economic significance of a recession is distinct from its political significance. In economic terms, a recession pushes many families into financial distress, but it has less impact on people who are already behind the 8 ball. In political terms, a recession may mobilize a segment of the population that was otherwise quiescent. This segment is more white, male, and Republican than the chronically disadvantaged, a factor that could weigh against Republican electoral fortunes and favor working class-oriented politics in 2020. Misery loves company. This is the reason for pointing to 2020 as the next recession year is the abnormally lengthy recovery the economy has been experiencing since the Great Recession of 2008. In other words, it has been so long without a recession, there must be one coming soon. That may not sound very scientific, but it's actually the best that economics can do. Otherwise, you can't find a cacophony of more or less equally informed commentary arguing one side or the other as to when or if a recession will come. The periods between recessions begin to lengthen after 1982, occasioning triumphant stories of, quote, great moderation. Those voices went silent after a great moderation of 2008. Moderation in this context is a positive thing since it means less fluctuation and a smoothly expanding economy. Fluctuation is undesirable, but it's disruptive and costly both to families and to businesses. This is a quasi-official nonprofit, the National Bureau for Economic Research, that determines the specific dates for the beginnings and ends of recessions. But economic data is only available with a lag. The upshot is that we are always in recession before we are notified of it. We are never sure it's coming. It says, what numbers should we actually watch? There are some important ways in which the course of the economy may diverge from trends in well-being of the working class. In the broadest terms, growth in GDP and unemployment doesn't necessarily translate into growth in wages. The main source of income for most of the population, wages began diverging from productivity in the mid-1970s. U.S. wage growth has been more anemic for decades. Adding insult to injury, even higher wages alone would not fully support the needs of a household. Wages aren't enough to enable a family to afford health insurance, for example. And a healthy public sector is necessary to provide the basics of safety and infrastructure, including roads in good repair and potable water. A big flashing red light distraction in all of this is the stock market. The headline numbers, changes in the main stock market indexes, are of great interest to the small fraction of the population that owns stock. But trends in the stock market don't mirror or well, you can have that opinion. And look, the article may be fake, but whether you believe it or not, there will be a recession that comes. I can guarantee that. In the stock market, the way I look at the stock market, I know about hyperinflation, I know about deflation. I know they pump it up. I know they make it look like something they're not. I'm just reading an article, and this is obviously someone else's perspective or point of view. So I'm reading this person's perspective or point of view. All you have to do is just look up repo rates and all the crap that they've been doing. If they're manipulating money behind the scenes and they're not telling anyone about it, they are preparing for something. But if you want to read more into it, go ahead and read more into it. If you think the article's fake, you're entitled to that opinion. So this says Walmart dodged U.S. tax on $2 billion by routing cash through multiple countries, whistleblower says. Yeah. The whole idea of money. Look, here's the way I also look at money is it's one of the most, aside from religion, it's one of the most divisive things that this world has ever, that man has ever created. So people just, manipulate the stock market. Let's get everyone dependent upon all these different things, and then let's just crush everything or prove everyone wrong. And then everyone at the end of the day becomes more upset and more pissed off at each other. And then you're falling exactly for what they want us to do, the whole divide and conquer. I have zero faith in the people that run this stuff. So this says Walmart dodged U.S. tax on $2 billion by routing cash through multiple countries, whistleblower says. This may be a fake article too, but I just read the news. So it says Walmart, the world's biggest company, underpaid U.S. taxes on nearly $2 billion worth of offshore cash, according to whistleblower documents filed by a former Walmart executive to the Internal Revenue Service in 2011 and recently attained by courts. It says the firm avoided nearly 200 million in taxes. And if you guys don't know this either, Jeff Bezos just avoided around this amount of money for paying taxes. These people don't pay taxes, but you'll go to jail if you don't pay your taxes. So it says the firm avoided nearly 200 million in taxes on the money and, quote, dramatically overstated its foreign tax credits in 2009 and 2010 by routing payments from Luxembourg to the United States via the United Kingdom and not declaring they came from a tax haven, the whistleblower wrote. If Walmart claimed all the tax credits, it could have improperly avoided paying close to $600 million in total via maneuvers, according to the files. The whistleblower argued in the documents that the company should owe all that money to the IRS. A second former executive who shared the files with courts confirmed the whistleblower's allegations. Walmart denied any wrongdoing, was said in a quote, "The transactions brought to our attention are appropriately reported to the reported to and audited by the IRS." A spokesman said in the emailed statement, "The tax years covering this matter were closed by the IRS more than 7 years ago." Spokesperson declined to say whether the company explicitly told the IRS that the money originated in Luxembourg rather than the United Kingdom. Walmart's history of alleged tax dodging poses a challenge to the firm's efforts to rebrand itself as an exemplar of conscious capitalism, especially as it regroups from settling a 7-year bribery investigation for $282 million in June. In September, courts obtained files showing the firm may owe up to $2.6 billion in U.S. taxes avoided by creating, quote, fictitious Chinese entity. And in 2015, a report by the Americans for Tax Fairness alleged that Walmart had placed assets worth at least $76 billion in tax havens where it had no retail stores, a figure equal to 37% of the company's total assets at the time. Walmart has contested both reports. I'm sure they have, scandalous people. I hate Walmart. Said according to 2011 file, between 2009 and 2010, Walmart loaned roughly 1.2 or nearly $2 billion in U.S. money from its now low-taxing Luxembourg subsidiary to the U.S. headquarters. However, instead of sending the money directly to the United States and incurring high taxes, it first sent the transactions to subsidiaries in Britain, where it owes ASDA, the United Kingdom's second largest supermarket chain. The whistleblower claimed that Walmart then reported on its tax return that the money had come from Britain, a country that fairly high business taxes rather than Luxembourg, a tax haven. That gave the company the option to claim many more foreign tax credits in the United States, according to the files. This was all part of a, quote, coordinated plan, the former executive alleges in the files, noting that the fund flows all occurred within 2 days. This method is, quote, pure manipulation of the tax code, was common among multinationals, the second former executive told courts. It's just that Walmart did in such a staggeringly sloppy way by making the transfers over just 2 days. So you can go in and read all this, but if you... I talk about this crap all the time. All these guys avoid taxes. All of them. I forgot how much Jeff Bezos was. Someone else, Dabu7, talked about that, but he said it was just some ungodly amount. Do I trust the polls? I don't trust the two-party system. I don't trust any of it. It's all a facade, man. The illusion of choice is our downfall. They tell you you have a choice. It's to make you think you hold a seat in power. The only power is if we stood up and spoke for ourselves, but they keep us fighting with each other to where we don't have a voice. That's what the problem is. Everyone just believes, oh yeah, I can vote this person or whatever it is. You have people that we vote in, or the electoral college, that we tell them, well, we like this guy, and then we send that guy to vote for us. So it's, I never trust them. I don't trust them. My ancestors didn't trust them. I don't trust them. This is crazy because I talk a lot about what goes on over in the Middle East with the riots. You know, they cut the internet off in Iraq. They're blaming the recession, or I guess they're kind of having a recession or whatever it is over there. their fuel prices went through the roof. They're blaming all that stuff on the tariffs that we put on Iran, Iraq, and the Middle East. They cut the internet off. All these people just they're going crazy over there right now. So it says, after armed men raided the home of Hussein Adel, and I can't pronounce these names, so forgive me, al-Madani and his wife Sarah Tlaib last year, the Iraqi activist spent months of self-imposed exile in Turkey. Changed address upon returning home and ceased participating in protests, according to two friends of the couple. It says, but a day after anti-government demonstrations erupted in Baghdad in October, unidentified gunmen believed by activists to be working on behalf of Iran-backed militias shot the couple dead in their home in the southern city of Basra, said the friends and two security sources familiar with the incident. Sarah was several months pregnant. It was a message: no matter who you are, how peacefully you object, if you go out and demonstrate, you'll be threatened, locked up, or killed, said one of the friends and activists, who gave the name Abbas, an alias, for fear of reprisal from armed groups. Reuters interviews with 5 officials and more than half a dozen Iraqi rights activists depict patterns of mass arrests, intimidation, and torture, and in some cases targeted killings of Iraqi protesters. It says, on Friday, Iraqi Prime Minister Adel Abdul Mahdi announced his resignation following weeks of protests calling for the removal of a government viewed as corruption and powerful Iranian-backed paramilitary groups that supported it. Iraqis say the resignation alone will not curb the power to corrupt officials or armed groups. At least six activists have been shot dead in or near their homes over the past year in what appear to be targeted assassinations. According to activists and one government official, the official and the activist said they believed Iran-backed militias were behind the deaths because those killed had been openly critical of the militias and had also received threats based on their anti-government and anti-Iranian activism. The number of targeted killings and details of intimidation tactics used in the crackdown have not previously been reported, and several activists say it amounts to what they view as a campaign intended to silence dissidents and is causing them to abandon protest or consider fleeing the country. An Iranian official who spoke on the condition of anonymity said accusations of killings and threats by militias Tehran supports were, quote, baseless. Yesterday I pulled up an article. It's in yesterday's video. They actually, I think it was 8 people. They arrested 8 people that had ties to the Central Intelligence Agency in Iran and Iraq over there, causing problems among all the crap that's going on over there. So another reason why I don't trust them. And they get in the middle of everything. Everyone else's crap. Everyone wants to get in the middle of everyone else's stuff. Our government, for some reason, feels the need to do that. This says U.S. to reduce its contribution to NATO's central budget. It says President Trump has frequently criticized the military alliance, but the reduction in U.S. spending is largely symbolic. The Trump administration is substantially reducing the amount of money the U.S. gives to NATO. The most recent data shows the U.S. provided about 22% of NATO's budget in 2018 and 2019. U.S. defense officials told CNN that President Donald Trump plans to reduce that by 16%. This cache of funds is the central budget for the international organization, and it's separate from the defense spending, which is supposed to sit at 2% of the GDP for each member's country. President Trump has frequently criticized the military alliance, but the reduction in U.S. spending is largely symbolic, and it says Germany has agreed to pay more to make up the difference. We'll see if that happens. Oh, another reason why I don't trust them is the Patriot Act. Because we didn't have a chance to read what's in it, and they just said, well, we got to have this. So you guys get, it's for your protection. And then what your protection meant is that they're going to just spy on all your emails, all your text messages, all everything. I mean, everything. So, but this is crazy. Trump is the first to use Patriot Act to detain a man forever. Forever. I guess there's no life. It's just forever. So it's however long this guy lives, he's not any chance of getting out. Nothing like that. It's just forever. He's detained. That's crazy. It says for the 18-year lifespan. For the 18-year lifespan of the War on Terrorism, an obscure provision of the Patriot Act permitting the indefinite detention of non-citizens on U.S. soil has gone unused. But to keep a Palestinian man behind bars even after he finished serving his sentence, the Trump administration has fired this bureaucrat Chekhov's gun. It says, Adham Amin Hassoun, I guess is how you pronounce it, now in his late 50s, has spent nearly the entire war on terrorism in cages. It says first picked up on an immigration violation in June of 2002. He ended up standing trial alongside once suspected, quote, dirty bomber Jose Padilla. It says, but Hassoun was never accused of any act or plot of violence. The crime was cutting checks to extremist-tied Muslim charities operating in places like Kosovo and Chechnya. The Congress outlawed after the 9/11 attacks. Hassoun wrote all but one of those checks before that day. Sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, Hassoun should have been a free man in 2017. Instead, he found himself in custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which locked him up in Western New York. It was there that Hassoun's case turned extraordinary. It said that ICE wanted to deport Hassoun, but his statelessness as a Palestinian got in the way. No country... yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right on that one. He's probably an asset. But it says ICE wanted to deport Hassoun, but his statelessness as a Palestinian got in the way. No country, not the Lebanon of his birth, not the Israel that occupies the West Bank and Gaza, was willing to take him. Aided by attorneys at the University of Buffalo Law School, Hassoun in January won that should have been his freedom on the grounds that his deportation was unlikely. The Trump administration instead declared him as a threat to national security. It did so at first using an also obscure immigration regulation designed to sidestep a 2001 Supreme Court ruling imposing a 6-month detention limit. And it was aided by testimonial under seal of Hassoun's alleged misdeeds behind bars as related by what his attorneys describe as jailhouse snitches who provided second or third-hand accounts. But as the government fought what had become a habeas corpus case for Hassoun's release, the Department of Homeland Security invoked for the first time in U.S. government history Section 412 of the Patriot Act. Section 412 gives the government broad powers to detain non-citizens on American soil who it can't deport but deems on, quote, responsible grounds to be engaged in activity that endangers the national security of the United States. It makes that determination for a 6-month period that it can review without limit. To little fanfare, the former acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Kevin McAleenan, whatever his name is, informed Hassoun on August 9th that, quote, you will therefore remain in custody of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement pending your removal from the United States or reconsideration of this decision. Attorney for Hassoun's, who are in federal court on Friday to argue for his freedom, are stunned at the invocation of Section 412. They noted that the Patriot Act provision is written to, quote, take a non-citizen into custody, not to retroactively designate someone already in detention as a threat. If the government were to prevail in this claim of extraordinary and unprecedented executive power, the government would be free to lock up non-citizens indefinitely based solely on executive say-so, even after they completed serving their sentence, said Jonathan Happs, a lawyer with the American Civil Liberties Union. So, yeah, that guy's not, he's not going anywhere. But I saw that comment in there. It said, after death row, but I mean, I think this is funny. like I said, I don't really get in the whole political thing. I just read it so people are aware, because I think people are just so busy and they don't really want to watch mainstream crap anymore. So I just kind of read, and some of the stuff I find is funny. Like this one I think is funny because I think all these people that are running for the other side are, I think they're dumb. I mean, they're dumb. This says Baby Yoda is trending higher than most 2020 Democratic hopefuls. Baby Yoda for president. The breakout star of the Metadolorian is driving nearly twice as many average social media interactions and news stories about it as any 2020 Democratic hopeful, according to Axios. Said the diminutive, doe-eyed, big-eared creature with an uncanny resemblance to the Jedi Master has taken the internet by storm since being introduced November 12th in the Star Wars spin-off series on Disney+. The adorable character debut coincided with the entry of two latecomers into the Democratic field, former Mayor Michael Bloomberg and former Massachusetts Governor DeVale Patrick. Both candidates have had significant number of articles written about them since November 12th. Bloomberg ranks second among the Democratic pack with 7,650, while Patrick is in fourth with 4,044, according to data from NewsWhip provided to Axios. But with a Baby Yoda in the mix with the Democrats, Bloomberg ranks 14 and Patrick 16 in terms of average interactions, including likes, comments, and shares per story about them, according to Axios. Meanwhile, the diminutive creature has notched an average interaction rate 10 times higher than theirs, the news outlet said. In terms of raw interactions since November the 12th, Baby Yoda's 2.28 million trail on the Democratic frontrunners, Joe Biden 8 million, Bernie Sanders 2.9 million, and Elizabeth Warren 2.53 million. The rate of interactions is massive, though, considering that Baby Yoda would only rank 10th in their terms of the number of articles, 1,368 written about them. Because the data only captures interactions with news stories, it doesn't take in the myriad of Baby Yoda memes and content native to social media, meaning that its reach is likely far wider. A fictitious character is... that's funny. I don't care who you are. So this has to do says IBM patents blockchain to stop drones from stealing packages. I read articles prior to this that said I think CVS has a drone delivery company in like Christiansville, one of the Carolinas, over there somewhere. And then another company was going to roll out a what was it? It was CVS and I think Walgreens. Another, I may be wrong. And I know Amazon's trying to have the blimp that flies over and they fall out and they fly everywhere, deliver packages, and then go back up in the blimp. It's crazy. If you haven't seen the video, you should go watch it. I'd be more concerned about, piece of crap thieves, porch pirate bastards that steal your packages, but that's just me. Says IBM patents blockchain to stop drones from stealing packages. Says Amazon, DHL, and FedEx are building drones that deliver packages to your door. IBM, however, envisions a future where drones steal them instead. Said the computing giant won a patent on November 12th for, quote, preventing anonymous theft by drones with an Internet of Things altimeter that triggers upon liftoff, tracking the package altitude and uploading the data to a blockchain platform. The patent seeks to get ahead of two modern realities. People buy goods online and people fly their own personal drones, and that could be a problem. It says if the trends combine two devious ends. The confluence of the increase in drone use and the increase in online shopping provides a situation in which a drone may be used with nefarious intent to anonymously take a package that is left on a doorstep after delivery, the patent description reads. IBM's solution is to outfit packages with an IoT Internet of Things sensor that only triggers if it detects change in altitude exceeding the threshold expected when the object is lifted out away by the drone. Once it does, the sensor periodically updates the blockchain and the intended recipient with the package's altitude. To be clear, there is no indication that IBM actually plans to build an operational device, and if it does, it may well swap out blockchain for some other quote secure database, according to the patent. But the description does say blockchain is the patent's preferred embodiment, in part because it allows desperate trusted entities, the merchant, the shipper, etc., to input the package's whereabouts. It is unclear how prevalent drone heists are in America, and at the moment most shipping companies are focused on building delivery mechanisms. It says IBM did not return request for comment. Press time. I look at it this way. I think these people will that kite packages off your porch. People are gonna see a drone flying over you. You don't think for a second they're gonna throw something around it, knock it out of the air. I mean, if it's at a very high altitude, I don't see them doing it. Yeah, prescription medication. I don't know if you have to. I don't know how it works, but yeah, they want to deliver medications from pharmacies to your house. I look at it this way: those drug addicts are gonna be out there waiting for the drones to take off and like knocking them out of the sky, stealing people's drugs. People are desperate, man. They or you know, porch pirates are just set up something, and or they have those cannons that shoot the nets out that wrap them up and knock them down. I just think because criminals are criminals, I don't see how some of this technology will get that far. But so this is crazy, and I don't know if anyone has heard about this, but and it's in some of the paperwork if you ever buy a Ring doorbell. That they want to introduce in a software update facial recognition software, and then they want to take that I guess the information they gather from the facial recognition software. So if someone shows up on your porch, even if they're related to you and it scans their face, that runs to a police database that, hey, there's a guy with, you know, warrants, bench warrants out for his arrest, and he's at this address. So this is saying they want to give that information to police. It's also that it could be a possible software update for these Ring doorbells. This is just the more technocratic overlords of control that they want to see everything we're doing, and they want to Chuck, who's paying for this? I don't know who makes Ring. I don't know. If it has anything to do with Amazon, you know, Bezos has a contract with the Central Intelligence Agency, so I don't know. But yeah, they want to sell that information. So if you have somebody that shows up to your house and their family member, and you know, you're obviously not a rat, well, your doorbell just might rat on them in your place now. And this is where we're getting to. And they want to sell that information to police departments. It's getting crazy. So it says, don't buy anyone a Ring camera. And here's the other thing. I have one on my phone. You can download the app even if you don't have one yourself. And when other people's Ring doorbells go off around the neighborhood, it alerts your phone. It sends you an alert, and it tells you, hey, someone is at this door, or someone has, you know, breached a sensor at this address. You can actually get alerts to what's happening in the neighborhood around you from other people that own Ring doorbells. Well, the police department wants that, but they want it for the facial recognition software, so they can eat their donuts and do a quarter of their job when they're not out beating up innocent people. But I'm not going to get into all that. It says there's a chance you had never heard of Ring cameras before Amazon. Okay, well, there you go. Amazon bought the company. So yeah, there's your answer, Chuck. It says before Amazon bought the company for as much as $1.8 billion last year. It's possible that Ring still wasn't on your radar earlier this year. Yeah. Yeah, just Google that one. Bezos contract CIA. It'll pop up on there. He's in there. He doesn't pay taxes. They scratch his back, he scratches theirs. It's possible that Ring still wasn't on your radar earlier this year when reports emerged that the home security giant had partnered with scores of police departments, funneling videos and user data in some dystopia effort to make a profit by fighting crime and eradicating privacy. But there's a good chance that you're going to see Ring Video Doorbell on sale, possibly bundled with an Amazon Echo. They can, I read an article too, they can hack your Amazon Echo with lasers now. University of Massachusetts found that out. And there's actually a video I posted of a guy doing it with a laser beam in his own house. And you buy all the stuff off Amazon. It said do not buy it, and definitely don't buy one for someone else. Ring is a troubled company, and last week a panel of 5 United States senators sent a letter to Amazon chief Jeff Bezos that expressed concerns that Ring's struggles with information security and habit of sharing its users' videos not only with law enforcement but also with its Ukraine-based research team. These people are crazy, man. The senators wanted to know how Ring encrypts user data, if at all, and how its internal security audits work. This is all happening after unsettling reports that Ring doorbells expose users' home Wi-Fi passwords to hackers, and that Ring's employees spy on unwitting users. Oh my gosh. If you put any of this stuff, if you put a camera in your house that's connected to your Wi-Fi, if you put any camera outside of your house that you can access it remotely from a cell phone across town, someone else can do it. There's people that do this stuff. They have nothing better to do than spy on people, steal your packages and your prescriptions that are soaring through the air like an eagle to get to your house when you're dying because you need your meds. This is crazy. It says these are troubles that home security companies could face. Information security is hard, and privacy can be tricky when your product is designed to make live video easily accessible to users on multiple devices. But the Ring story is somehow more sinister than that. It gets crazier. The story begins in 2011 when Jamie, I'm going to call him Smirnoff, invented a Kinect doorbell that could stream video to a phone. Smirnoff called it Doorbot, and in 2013 mounted a successful crowdfunding campaign before appearing on Shark Tank to seek additional $700,000 investment. The Shark Tank investors turned Smirnoff down, but the investor says the publicity sent sales through the roof, and he renamed the company as Ring and later called the Shark Tank's flop extraordinary, worth millions. It says it's not entirely clear when Smirnoff decided to fight crime, but, quote, to reduce crime in communities has been the company's mission since at least 2014. Now they've turned the crime catchers to the spying criminals. That mission has evolved in curious ways following the early success of the Ring Video Doorbell. The company's launched a whole suite of home security products, including motion sensors, indoor and outdoor cameras, an alarm system, and even smart lighting. In 2018, Ring also released an app called Neighbors. That's the one I was just telling you about, to provide every neighbor with real-time local crime and safety information. This Neighborhood Watch app has since been compared to Nextdoor and Citizen, two companies that have been mired in controversies of their own for years following accusations that they enable racial profiling and instill undue fear in communities. The problem with Neighbors are much worse. The first problem is a technical one. Using the Ring app automatically enrolls you in Neighbors, and there's no way to opt out. You don't have to post any frightening crime reports to the Neighbors feed, but you must. But if you want to use any Ring hardware, you have to be involved in the service. You can also sign up for Neighbors if you don't. That leads right into the problems number 2. Once you're enrolled in Neighbors, and remember, you have to be. If you're using any Ring hardware, your videos or data could be shared with law enforcement agencies when requested. This sort of thing wouldn't be terribly different than other tech companies' practice of giving cops user data if presented with a warrant. But as Motherboard reported earlier this year, Ring has hundreds of once secret partnerships with police forces around the country. Partnerships that gave cops access to, quote, portal, where they could access video from Ring cameras in exchange for providing Ring with free advertising. The device owners must give permission to share these videos with police, but it's also unclear how users might be compelled to share it. These police partnerships were not only under wraps, but also awfully deep. The Motherboard report reads, in order to partner with Ring, police departments must also assign officers to Ring-specific roles that include a press coordinator, a social media manager, and a community relations coordinator. Gizmodo later reported that these press-facing roles are involved in Ring actually edited press release about Ring deals for police departments with whom it had contracts. As recently as April, one police memo showed over 225 law enforcement agencies were engaged in these sorts of partnerships with Ring. In fact, everything that the Ring surveillance saga is still unfolding. Just this week, The Intercept reported that the Ring has been working on neighborhood, quote, watch list based on artificial intelligence and facial recognition. We can only assume that Ring's law enforcement partners might gain access to these lists and possibly even funnel the data back into the fear machine that is the Neighbors app. Again, these cops can easily request access to videos from millions of Ring cameras, and according to Ring's privacy policy, Ring could compel users to share the footage based on, quote, requests from government agencies. It's up to the users to trust that Ring will abide by its own privacy policy. But like anything, I'm sure they can change it as much as they want to conform to what they want, and where it gives you less protection. They all do that. Does this sound like a company you should trust? It's under congressional scrutiny for poor data security and problematic privacy practices, and it's been engaged in dubious secret partnerships with police departments who can gain access to private home security camera feeds. Okay, so they can get access to your camera feeds. If you have a camera in your house, outside your house, they want access, or what they're saying, police departments who can gain access to private home security feeds or security camera feeds. So they could just, they're in and out. They can hop in and out of your stuff whenever they want to. Great. Great stuff. This is just ridiculous. It says corporate culture sounds weirdly militant. It says according to this revealing feature, Los Angeles Times feature from 2017, Ring's founder Jamie Siminoff entertains some weird sort of materialistic fantasy at the office. He treats employees as confidants in war, bestowing them with dog tag style security badges inscribed with name, start date, and title. He's honest about fear, retelling his nightmares to employees of the morning after World War II. Posters in the hallways emphasize the battle, quote, loose lips think Ring, and protect our neighborhoods. It says, don't buy it, but a Nest Hello Doorbell. Don't buy it, buy a Nest Hello Doorbell. The hardware isn't perfect, but that company isn't feeding footage to the cops that we know of. Better yet, buy a Logitech Circle 2 camera, and you can review a whole day's worth of footage for free, and the company also probably isn't giving your personal data to the cops. More infringement on your rights. So, I'm sure everybody's heard about this one. It's been on the news everywhere. Not really going to read too much into it, but allegedly this guy had a fake vest on, and he was on a bridge, and he just started killing people, and some bystanders tackled the guy, and then he was eventually shot by the police over in London. So pray for the people involved in that. It's a shame, you know. It's just, it's crazy that this type of stuff has to exist in the world. But if you want to, it's all over the news. It was like breaking news this afternoon. If you guys want to look more into it, you can look at the article in the description. And here's one on the, which I kind of covered this in the other article, but Yeah, the Iraqi prime minister is going to resign in the wake of deadly protest. They pretty much got what they've been protesting is his resignation, and that's finally gonna be a reality for him there. Hang on. So this article I thought was nuts. Yesterday I talked about, Trudeau and Canada is wanting to use taxpayer money to fund I'm not gonna say the word on here, smack, whatever, few addicts in their country so that they can I guess they can use it in safe injection sites over there too, and it's not helping the problem. It's just making it worse. And now, people that aren't drug addicts and don't participate in this stuff are gonna be footing the bill for the addicts over in Canada. Well, this article says driver suffers overdose and crashes on I-77. This is out of New York. Dude, just stay home, man. If this is how you want to live your life, stay home. You could have wiped a whole bunch of people out doing this, but it says a Baysville man received six doses of Narcan administered by state highway patrol troopers after he apparently suffered an overdose and crashed the vehicle he was driving on Interstate 77 Wednesday night. Corey Hersey, 26 years old, was transported by a United ambulance to Southeastern Med in Cambridge, where he was treated in an emergency department and later released, according to a nursing supervisor. Hersey was the lone occupant in a vehicle at the time of the crash just north of Buffalo exit. According to a dispatch log at the sheriff's office, a motorist called at 9:43 p.m. to report a motorist who had been driving recklessly on I-77 had crashed his vehicle into a guardrail near milepost 39. Highway Patrol's Cambridge Post reported Hersey was driving northbound on the berm on I-77 and passed at least one other vehicle before continuing off the right side of the roadway and striking a guardrail. A patrol officer arrived minutes later, requested an ambulance for Hersey as he was found unresponsive and slumped over into the passenger seat. The trooper reportedly administered a sternum rub, but received no response from Hersey. The first dose of Narcan was administered to Hersey while he was still seated inside the vehicle via a nasal spray. Troopers reported Hersey was breathing but still not responding to them. 5 additional doses of Narcan were administered between 9:58 and 10:03 p.m. according to the sheriff's log. At 10:05 p.m., Hersey reportedly opened his eyes and responded to verbal commands. He was transported to the Cambridge hospital a short time later. It says in the 1994 Toyota Corolla driven by Hersey sustained moderate damage. The patrol report did not indicate any illegal narcotics were located inside the vehicle prior to being towed from the scene. Hersey was cited for operating a vehicle while under the influence. Hopefully that's a lesson for you. Hopefully. I doubt it will be, though. If that's how you choose to live your life, you could have killed a whole bunch of people doing that crap. You could have killed a whole bunch of people, innocent people, traveling, for the holidays. Jesus. So there's a jet in the thumbnail there. I don't know if you could tell. I just kind of threw that one together today, but this is Russia's new missile could give the Su-57 stealth fighter its teeth. So they're all about Russia right now is all about building hypersonic weapons and a whole bunch of crap. And I think they have a lot more weapons than what we even know about, but probably do. It says Russia appears to be developing a new small air-to-air missile that could arm the Su-57 stealth fighter. The United States also is working on a smaller air-to-air missile to arm its growing force of radar-evading warplanes. Yesterday, I actually talked about them arming some of our fighter jets with laser beams. It sounds like something out of freaking Austin Powers, where he's like sharks with lasers, but I mean, we're like about to be living in Star Wars. Stuff flying around, hypersonic missiles, laser beams. It says Russia appears to be developing a new small air-to-air missile that could arm the Su-57 stealth fighter. The United States is also working on a smaller air-to-air missile to arm its own growing force of radar-evading warplanes. The new missile appeared in a display at a munitions marker, Viample NPO's, I don't know what that is, Toropov design facility in Moscow on November 18, 2019. The Warzone reporter Joe noted. It said the missile, the designation of which is not public, appears to be derived from the medium-range R-77 series missile. However, it is significantly shorter than any of the variants in that family, as well as the R-74 and the K-74M dogfighting missiles. This form factor seems ideally suited to meet space limitations by small bays located under which the wing roots of the Su-57 advanced combat aircraft. It said there's growing demand among operators of stealth fighters for smaller missiles. It says stealth jets such as the F-22 and the F-35 and Su-57 feature internal weapon bays that help to minimize the plane's radar signatures. The size of the bays limit which weapons and how many of them the fighters can carry. The Pentagon is developing at least 2 new small-to-air missiles. Peregrine and Cuba. It says the lack of internal space of the F-35 is driving the requirement for these and smaller munitions. The F-35 famously can fit just 2 radar-guided AIM-120 or AIM-120 advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles, or ARMS in the belly bay in full stealth mode, and its munitions tucked into the bay. The F-35 gets just 2 shots at an enemy fighter before it must resort to dogfighting with its internal cannon. The F-35 is notoriously a poor dogfighter. Smaller missiles could solve that problem, and Raytheon, of course, Raytheon's in everything. They work closely with DARPA. Claimed Peregrine, which is what name that is, which is 6 feet long and weighs 150 pounds, will have the same range as a 12-foot long, 345-pound AMRAAM, and maneuverability matching a 10-foot long, 190-pound AIM-9 Sidewinder heat-seeking missile. It says this missile will allow the U.S. and allied fighter pilots to carry more missiles into battle and maintain air dominance. Dr. Thomas Bussing, the vice president of Raytheon Advanced Missile Systems, said in a statement, "With its advanced sensor, guidance, and propulsion system packed into this much smaller airframe, this new weapon represents a significant leap forward in air-to-air missile development." Okay, Lockheed's in there too. They're all in there. It says the Wingman drone. It says Cuba is a highly lethal interceptor that defeats targets by direct body-to-body impact, Lockheed told Flight Global. At impact, Cuba, sweeps its mass directly through the target and selected point of vulnerability. A new fighter-style Wingman drone that the U.S. Air Force is developing also could carry the new smaller missiles. The Kratos XQ-58 Valkyrie unmanned aerial vehicle, funny they call it Valkyrie, they name everything after that stuff. The likely basis of the Air Force's first armed Wingman drone can carry 2 small air-to-air missiles in its internal weapons bay, Flight Global reported. The Wingman drone initiative is moving in concert with new missiles development, and the Air Force Research Laboratory Cyborg program is developing the artificial intelligence for the wider Wingman drone effort. To develop the hardware, AFRL is experimenting with 3 copies of the subsonic XQ-58. The Air Force in November 2019 designated Cyborg as one of its first, quote, vanguard research programs that together will account for the 1/5 of the service science spending. The Valkyrie's first flight took place in March 2009, and the 29 feet long jet-powered XQ-58 on June 11, 2019 took off for its second test flight over Yuma, Arizona, and the Air Force and Kratos plan to conduct 5 test sorties during the phase of the XQ-58's development. The Air Force wants an early version of Wingman drone to be ready for combat by 2023. It says it's unclear whether the new small missile will be ready by then. It's worth noting that Russia is working on its own Wingman drone, and if and when it ever enters service, the Hunter B drone will need small munitions too. And then, we'll all just give them to everybody else. And they'll use those on each other. And then because they have our markings or someone else's markings on it, then we'll get blamed for it. What proxy war is. So I don't even talk about this because I really don't like to give these pedophiles a time of day. This says British military officials call Prince Andrew's, quote, embarrassment, who should relinquish honorary military titles. If you haven't watched any of these interviews, they're disgustingly sick. It's a shame people like this have to exist. But anyway, it says Britain's Prince Andrew, Duke of York, attends the ceremony, so that's where he's wearing all his military garb there. It says Prince Andrew should relinquish his honorary military titles after his disastrous TV interview defending his relationship with Jeffrey didn't kill himself Epstein. Officials in the British Armed Forces told the Times of London. The unidentified Army and Navy officials called the Duke of York an embarrassment who should be, quote, quietly faded out, the major UK newspaper reported on Thursday. It is not viable, it's embarrassing to be represented by someone like that, one source reportedly told the Times. As a service, we would not be rushing to invite him to anything, a senior Navy source reportedly said. Andrew, the second son of Queen Elizabeth II, was a naval helicopter pilot who flew in the Falklands War. He later picked up more than a dozen honorary military titles for the UK, Canada, and New Zealand, including Colonel-in-Chief of several regiments of the British Army. The newspaper said the British Armed Forces are bound by their allegiance to the Queen and unable to strip Andrew of his titles without her permission. Andrew stepped down from the royal duties last week amid public outrage over his recent interview with the BBC. It was a horrible interview. He said the tone-deaf Duke, 59, was blasted for failing to express any compassion for Epstein's victims in a TV sit-down and defending his 2010 stay with at Epstein's Manhattan mansion that included a dinner party with the predator who'd just served 13 months for procuring a minor for prostitution. Confronted with photographic evidence, he at least met the 17-year-old Epstein sex slave, who says she was coerced into sleeping with him. Andrew told the BBC he believed the image was, quote, faked. Right. What all you perverts say. He then claimed a, quote, overdose of adrenaline purportedly suffered in the Falklands War left him unable to perspire, so the woman's claim he sweated on her actually exonerated him. The interview was widely panned in the British press, with royal watcher Charlie Proctor calling it a, quote, plane crashing into an oil tanker causing a tsunami triggering a nuclear explosion. If you haven't watched it, I've never seen a guy stick his foot in his mouth as much as that guy did in that interview. Freaking pervert. This I thought was crazy. I'm to the point now after reading this article. I guess you just get obliterated on Xannies. There's probably not a lot in there, but this article says 70% of pure human blood ready for transfusion found to contain Xanax. The scientists testing a small but random sample of donated blood ready for transfusion have discovered that 70% contain traces of Xanax. It says, writing in the Journal of Pharmaceutical and Biomedical earlier this month, researchers were surprised by the level of pharmaceuticals detected in supposedly clean blood batches, in particular the concentrations of cough medicine and anti-anxiety medication. Let me make that a little bit smaller. You can read it. So the testing also revealed that all 18 batches of blood contained caffeine, suggesting America's love for caffeine. Tea and other caffeinated beverages must run deep. The purpose of the exercise was to find out the purity of blood samples before they were used to test a method for examining the effect of botanicals on drug metabolization. Botanicals are plant extracts taken for medical or therapeutic reasons, such as acacia, CBD oil, and ginkgo. From a contamination standpoint, caffeine is not the big worry for patients, though it may be commentary on current society, co-author Ling Xing, a PhD student at Oregon State University, said in a statement. But the other drugs being in there could be an issue for patients, as well as posing a problem for those of us doing this type of research, because it's hard to get clean blood samples. In the end, the researchers had to reject all the blood batches tested, except for the samples from 2 donors who had agreed ahead of donation not to drink or eat anything containing caffeine. It says 8 of the samples, or 44%, contained an over-the-counter cough medicine called a dextromethorphan. Whatever, I don't even know what that is. 13 or 72% contain anti-anxiety medication alprazolam, which is sold under the brand name Xanax. The researchers also tested the blood for drugs used to treat type 2 diabetes. I don't know what that one is either, but did not find any traces of the medicine in the batches tested. While an interesting insight into the country's Xanax habit, the purpose of the research undertaken by Shin and Richard Van Bremen, a professor of medicinal chemistry at OCU, was to find out how botanical dietary supplements affect the way drugs are broken down by the body. Understanding this is important as the use of botanicals is increasing. A report published by the American Botanical Council found sales herbal supplements jumped 8.5% in 2017, exceeding $8 billion for the first time. Demands for botanicals appeared to be driven by health and wellness trends and growing preference of natural health products, according to research and markets. Botanicals basically contain natural products with drug-like activities, said Van Bremen, and this means they can affect enzymes in the body just as the same way manufactured drugs can. An interaction that can cause problems in terms of drug metabolization in people who take both. It is estimated that almost half of all adults in the U.S. use prescription medications. The way prescription drugs and botanicals interact is, quote, not straightforward or necessarily predictable, says Van Bremen. The odd thing is, in this case, was finding all the tainted blood. Another thing to consider is that we found drugs that we just happened to be looking for in doing the drug interaction assay validation. How many others are in there too that we weren't looking for? Ultimately, the study involved a relatively small sample of blood. This means it may be hard to infer how widespread the problem of drug contamination in donated blood really is without further testing a much larger sample size from a diverse range of sources. I wonder if getting that, I don't know if that would, like, if you needed a blood transfusion. It's probably not a large amount anyways, but I'm curious if it would affect you. But I guess if you're allergic to alprazolam or something like that, even just a little bit of it would probably have some side effect or effect on you, regardless. Hang on just a second. I only have a couple more articles here, but this says Russian-Turkish military tensions in northeast Syria. This was, rising tensions in the headline there, the whatever. This tensions rose Thursday between Russian army and Turkish-backed Syrian opposition fractions near the town of An Issa, considered a self-governed Kurdish administration in the northeast of Syria. This is Moscow announced that Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation Army General Valery Gershnimov held talks with his Turkish counterpart, General Yasir Güler, on the developments in Syria. During the talks, they exchanged viewpoints on the situation in Syria, and the Russian news agency TASS said on Thursday. Russian Foreign Minister spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said that Moscow and Ankara maintain constant contacts that help them iron out differences arising during the Syrian operation. Our militaries and diplomats are in contact almost around the clock, which helps us resolve issues, she told reporters. On October 22nd, Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Turkish counterpart, I just call him Erdogan, I'm not going to try to pronounce all the other part, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, signed a memorandum on joint actions in northeastern Syria. Turkey and Russia began joint patrolling in the area on November the 1st. Separately, Russia failed to block funding for a new team that would identify culprits behind toxic attacks in Syria after member states from the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons approved next year's budget for the watchdog. On Thursday, it says member states voted in favor of the new budget, while only 19 countries, including Russia and China, voted against. In light of the result, the budget for 2020 adopted the Conference of State Parties chairman said. Moscow and its allies were trying to block the budget of the OPCW if it included funding for the new Identification and Investigations team. The IIT team is currently looking to determine the parties responsible for an attack on the Syrian town of Douma in April 2018 after a probe found that chlorine was used. The United States accused Russia of a cover-up of the use of chemical weapons by Syria. The Syrian cover-up is never going to work because the international community has the courage of its convictions. Unfortunately, Russia has played a central role in the cover-up, U.S. Ambassador to the OPCW, Kenneth Ward, said. I have one more on Turkey here. Even though all these guys act like, in the public view that they play nice together, it's all about money. End of the day, money and control, fighting over imaginary lines, and resources, commodities, mainly, oil. It says Turkey not backing down in NATO defense plan dispute source. It says Ankara will resist efforts by its NATO allies to persuade it to back an alliance defense plan for the Baltics and Poland until its demands are met over a plan for Turkey's defense, a Turkish diplomatic source said on Wednesday. It says Reuters reported on Tuesday that Turkey was refusing to back the plan for the Baltics and Poland unless it got more political support for its fight against Kurdish YPG militia in northern Syria. Turkey wants NATO to formally recognize the YPG militia, the main component of the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, as terrorists, and is infuriated that its allies have given the militia support. It says the Turkish source said NATO had agreed this year to back the alliance plan for defense of Turkey, including in the event of an attack from the south where it borders in Syria. The plan included recognizing the YPG as a terrorist threat to Turkey, but Washington later withdrew its support, and other countries then opposed it too, the source added. So we are saying that if ours defense plan isn't published, we won't allow the other plan for the Baltics and Poland to be published either, the source said. Those who want to publish the plan for the Baltics must then show the same awareness for ours as well. Presidential spokesperson Ibrahim Kalin said on Twitter on Tuesday that the European Union and NATO must cooperate with Turkey regarding the country's national security concerns. Turkey is a strong member of NATO with the second largest army in it and wants to join the EU as a full member, he said. But the allies must take threats against Turkey's national security seriously and work in partnership to overcome them. A week before a NATO summit in London, alliance envoys are seeking formal approval by 29 members for the military plan to defend Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia in the event of a Russian attack. Asked about the issue, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg declined to give details of the internal discussions, but said, quote, "We have plans in place to defend and protect all allies in our community. To collective defense is ironclad. Says not only do we have plans, but we have more ready forces and modernized command structures and more capabilities that we have had for decades," Stoltenberg said. The start of the Turkish offensive in northeast Syria last month was condemned by the NATO allies, who fear it would hinder the battle against Islamic State. Turkey has rejected the concerns, saying it will continue to battle all terrorists in the region, which it says includes the US-backed YPG. The Turkish source said Stoltenberg was trying to find common ground between the member states on the defense plan for Turkey, and that Ankara is, quote, "open to offers." We will see. But that's pretty much all I have for tonight. How long have I been on here? An hour and a half's not bad. But as always, if you guys want to look any of these articles up, they're in all the links are in the description below. If you listen to them on a podcast, go to the About section. It has all the information, how to contact me, where to send articles, DLive, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all of it's on there. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off here, and you guys have a good evening, and pray for each other. I'm just going to continue to bring news that people ignore, and that eventually, whether it may not be relevant in our lives now, will eventually become relevant in our lives. So until I see you guys next time, Yah bless and shalom.